Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Story. My name is Daniel Parker, and I am the writer and creator of a comic book called, this comic book right here, Angel's Awakening. And I've got the follow up to this book, Guardian Angel, which is in the works right now. We've gotten 5 pages so far, drawn and colored. Sixth one is being worked on right now. And mailing list is coming soon, so be on the lookout for that.
Very nice. How many pages is it going to be?
It's going to be 62 pages.
Okay, so we got a ways to go.
Yeah, we got a ways to go, and also too, it's only part one, so it's going to be one of two. Yes, yeah, one of two. So yeah, be a very pretty dense story, but it's going to be fun. Lots of action, lots of cool stuff in there. So yeah, looking forward to getting that book out and for everybody to read that one very well in the near future. So of course, joining me as always, Darth Bobcat.
Darth Bobcat, also known as DB Fastbinder, author of Confessions of the Magpie Wizard, plus a bunch of cringy fan fictions I will never tell you about. So, oh hey, they're actually showing my ad on there. Gee, thank you, Amazon. That showing the ad for my first book on my third book. That is such a useful use of my advertising dollars. Well done. I'm glad it's only cost me like $1 this month. I think that says the algorithm. I think that this book looks like these books. Yes, you're very right, algorithm.
Yeah.
Good job. Let me just pat you on the head and send you along.
Yeah.
Anyway, Confessions of the Magpie Wizard. It's my passion project. It's the story of a devil who slowly falls to the light side, though he would never admit it.
Yes. Yes, and it's obviously I've only read a little bit of the first book, but I need to get back into it. But yeah, I'm really looking. I'm liking what I've read so far, and looking forward.
Oh, come on, man! I read your 40-page comic book already. multiple 300 to 400-page novels. That should take the same amount of time.
Yes.
There aren't even those pictures to get in the way of the words.
Yeah. But yeah, if you haven't gotten on these books yet, get on them. Yeah.
Yep. All up on Kindle.
Yeah. And hello, guys. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Hey.
D Rhino, Changus.
Changus intensifying, I see.
Yes. All right. So for this video, we're going to be talking about comedy, which I know is kind of a broad subject, but we'll try to whittle it down as best we can. And if anyone, I'm sure some of you have probably noticed throughout the years that comedy just isn't what it used to be. At least not, like say when DB and I were younger, or when or even when our parents were younger. It's kind of gotten to a point where it's just not funny anymore.
Well, and there's a couple of, let's define our terms here. Or let's set our scope. We're not saying that there is no comedy whatsoever. Right. Of course, there's lots of comedians on YouTube. There's people doing little things on TikTok and Twitter. There's people who do live streams where it's, if Changus, you're in the rabbit pit, or you're down the rabbit hole. It's a common joke among the whole live girls that no, we're idols, not comedians, even though they're clearly comedians. But it's so we're not saying that comedy has been stomped out. The phenomena we're referring to is more that it seems like comedy has kind of, like, big time comedies are kind of a thing of the past. We don't have an Airplane. We don't have Adam Sandler. Well, we have him on Netflix, but that doesn't quite count. That isn't quite the same.
Yeah.
We don't have We don't even have Joe Dirt.
Yeah.
Like if you put out Joe Dirt in theaters today, it'd be like, wow, this is like this is probably the funniest mainstream movie comedy of the year, and that's horrifying.
Yeah.
Wink.
It's
You can't see the
yeah.
wink because of my stupid anime glare. But
Yeah.
one of these days, I'm going to find an angle to sit at where you can actually see my darned eyes.
Yeah. And yeah, my life is nothing but a comedy. Ooh. Yes.
So we're talking kind of like a big macro. Studios don't throw the same resources into comedies that they used to.
Mhm.
This isn't quite as true on TV. You still have got stuff, well, Simpsons and Family Guy keep lumping along because enough people watch it to justify the expense.
Mhm.
But plus, it makes the old seasons more valuable.
Yeah.
You do have stuff with some heart like Bob's Burgers is out there. I've been watching a bunch of that lately. So yeah, we're really what we're really focusing on is kind of like the comedy that it seems like everybody would go to see.
Mhm.
It's a mad, 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 mad world would be another example of
Oh,
something like that. That's just kind of like generically
yeah.
appealing.
Yeah. 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 That is a classic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this while I was on my run earlier because running in the rain in Seattle is you need something to take your mind off it. And this isn't meant to be like an exhaustive list, but I was trying to think of what makes things funny.
Mhm.
Uh, it can be references, like to quote Captain America, I've he- I've heard of that one, or I got
Yes.
that
I
reference.
understood that. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. That's right. I understood that reference.
Yes.
Uh, uh, it can just be kind of the Family Guy style manatee joke where it's like, oh, I remember Smooth Criminal.
Yeah.
That was a great music video. Haha.
Yeah.
And now Stewie's doing it.
Yeah.
I do not know that Stewie has ever done Smooth Criminal, but it would not surprise me if he had.
Probably has. Yeah.
Making me stab in the dark there. So you got reference. You got relatability. So it's basically a man, I've been in that situation before. It was awful, or it was great. Ha 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 ha.
Mhm.
Uh, Third one that occurred to me is puns and wordplay. So, things sound funny. So it's funny on that level.
Mhm.
Um, and then you also have it's kind of like what you could call like an othering effect of comedy, which is kind of related to the relatability. It's basically, boy, I'm glad I'm not that guy. Or to quote Homer Simpson, haha, it's funny because I don't know him.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's levels of it I'm missing, but I think that covers a pretty wide swath.
Mhm.
And we only have an hour, so that's
Yeah.
so four general categories can get us a pretty good distance.
Mhm.
So, and I was trying to think like, what are some nice quintessential examples of like things that, well, I understood that reference that people would be generally familiar with that we can talk about. And one that occurred to me is Garfield.
Mhm.
So, what's Garfield's deal? He's a big fat cat.
Mhm.
He hates Mondays and dieting. He loves lasagna.
Mhm.
His owner is John Arbuckle, a single nerd who tries to put himself out there in the dating pool but never succeeds. And Garfield is always silently mocking him, like which is an experience that I think most cat owners can appreciate.
Yes.
And you've got Odie, who is a dog who is loyal and happy but stupid.
And Garfield's always kicking him off the table.
Right. So- And I realized that different people could appreciate Garfield for entirely different reasons. Like, for example, John is often the butt of jokes, right? It's
Mhm.
like, haha, he's wearing a silly outfit to go on a date because he thinks it looks cool. What a nerd. But maybe I relate to John. Maybe John is a guy like me who's trying to put himself out there and doesn't always succeed. And I appreciate the little victories he gets and comeuppance when Garfield is wrong about him, which doesn't happen very often, but occasionally he would like to mix it up.
Mhm.
Maybe you're just kind of a fat slob, and you're like, oh man, I love eating and I hate getting up on Mondays.
Yeah.
Garfield is my spirit animal. Or maybe you just think Odie's cute,
Yeah.
and you're glad when that mean Garfield misses him and falls off the table himself.
Yes.
So you're basically all consuming the same thing. You're just appreciating it for different reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm trying to think, like, it's I'm trying to think of another example of something like that, but I guess you could put like the Simpsons in there, where
Mhm.
you got Homer, who's the oafish dad, who you might really he you might relate to Homer because you are a fat, lazy, bald oaf, and who's probably a little dim-witted, um, or somebody like him, or maybe your father was like Homer.
Right? Or at least you thought your dad was like Homer.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Um, and well, okay, I got another one. So everybody loves Raymond.
mhm.
Like, uh, most people will relate to, like, it can relate with Ray and Deborah because of with his parents. So like me, for example, I relate to it because Marie, Ray's mother, was
Mhm.
very similar to my grandmother. like like almost a carbon copy of my grandmother. Like, just very, very similar personality, similar temperament, all that.
It's got, yeah, like and you just and the fictional characters remind you of real people, and you can get this sort of like weird nostalgia, even for people who are kind of unpleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Garfield.
watched the cartoon of the Nine Lives of Garfield. I like that. That was the one where, like, there was the one where they transmogrified him into a dog, and he was a cat who died with, like, grow with the pianist and things like that. I don't think they put that one into the movie.
Hmm. I don't know. I've never heard that one.
It was a
That's
weird thing. Like, Jim
yeah.
Davis used to be a lot more experimental.
Mm, yeah.
Although I doubt that Jim Davis. Although, so weird thing I read is that Jim Davis will occasionally just Google Garfield when he wants to refer to Garfield to draw him, which somebody pointed out means that he's seen all, like, he must have seen all the weird Garfield, like, fan art that's out there, like the Cthulhu Garfield and any weird sexual stuff.
Ugh. What is it?
34.
Rule 34. Yeah.
Like, I saw this one where somebody had turned Garfield into, like, still kind of cartoony, but it was like a busty goth girl in, like, the style of Garfield, eating eating a plate of lasagna, saying, "Lasagna tastes so good. I wish Italy was real." This stuck me for being such a weird, nonsensical statement.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Like, there's also like surrealist humor where it's just so bizarre that it derails your train of thought.
Hmm. Um, Phineas and Ferb kind of would do that sometimes.
Oh yeah, Phineas and Ferb is really weird.
Yeah, yeah, like they would, like, there was one, like, I think it was the one of the hour-long episodes where, like, they were, like, flying around the world, and he and Phineas mentioned some, like, guy with uh like, this guy living in the Himalaya, this talking, like, underpants guy that lives in the Himalayas, and they're like, what are you talking about? And then they see him, and they're like, what?
Also, hi, COVID Kev.
Yes, hello, good to see you.
Uh, Okay,
Yeah.
fine. We'll get back on topic. You don't have to glare at us like that.
Yeah, geez.
So, uh, okay, so we've got, like, our categories, and we've given some examples.
Mhm.
Now, there is a recent or there's a recent stop motion cartoon that the internet has monetized probably more than HBO Max managed to, called Santa Inc.
Right.
by the esteemed Seth Rogen and what's her name from Wreck-It Ralph,
Sarah Silverman.
Sarah Silverman, right? Now, we both value our spare time too much to actually have tried to watch this show.
Yes.
But it's kind of emblematic. So what we're saying is it based on indirect information. Reviews we've seen, the trailer, which got famously downvoted to heck to the point where it was, YouTube had to try to, I think they had already been talking about hiding the dislike button, but I think that one kind of sped things up a little bit. Probably because somebody from Warner Brothers said, "Hey, if we're going to continue putting videos on your platform, hide it now."
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
use the secret plugin,
Mm.
you can see that's like 3,000 likes to 120,000 dislikes.
Yeah.
And
It's
it kind of fails on every category from what I've heard and just what I've seen. Man, when you're having to rely on Genghis Khan says Seth Rogen, the man who relied on James Franco to make his movies funny, and when you're relying on James Franco for his comedy chops, whew, you're
you're in trouble.
when he's the one pulling up the grade point average.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
But so Santa Inc. is basically about it's a stop motion animated feature, and from what I've seen, the stop motion is actually really good. Which, damn it, Hollywood actually put as much budget and time into the writing of these stupid things as you do into the production values. Because do you know how long stop motion animation takes to do? It's
Oh,
just like it's like
God,
the most meticulous, mind-numbing process ever devised for making motion pictures.
yeah. I mean, it just going from like here to here takes like 2 days.
Yeah, so your weight now they probably they were doing like the kind of Rankin Bass stuff, so it's probably more like Robot Chicken, where it's a little bit more loosey goosey and fast, but
Hmm.
still, it's not an easy process. And you made those stop motion animators and animate that. Like if you see the trailer, from what I've heard reported, every joke in the trailer, you think, "Huh, this joke is going on a little bit too long." It's taken out of like a 5-minute scene of that same joke.
Oh, jeez.
So
Yeah.
today's the premise of Santa Inc. is stop motion thing in the kind of Rankin Bass style, like Santa Claus is coming to town or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And it's
Mhm.
basically about two people who very much hate Christmas uh, overthrowing Christmas, or at least wanting to overthrow Christmas.
Mhm.
And it's like all the characters are completely hateable. Nobody actually likes their job. Nobody likes children or Christmas. They're all just kind of there to be there and to have power. It's
Yeah.
uh, the punchlines are mostly just t- political talking points of one sort or another. So it's just like, okay, so it's the you failed on a lot of categories. You're not particularly relatable because most people like Christmas.
Mhm.
Even the Japanese like Christmas, even if they see it as a holiday to eat KFC and get a first kiss from your love.
Mhm.
Um, you failed from there's probably some wordplay in there that might be decent. Couldn't verify, but I kind of doubt it. It isn't particularly absurdist from what I can tell. Uh, like the most clever joke was the little elf voiced by Sarah Silverman asking a reindeer, uh, "It's very empowering what you're saying, but do you have to keep calling me bitch all the time?" "Of course I do, bitch. It's empowering when I call you bitch, bitch." Like that was like the only funny joke in anything I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, but apparently that was like a 5-minute scene again. So it's
Uh,
uh, um, it
too much.
doesn't it, it isn't relatable. It doesn't. Uh, it's just just all those categories. It kind of completely fumbles on,
Mhm.
and that's what a lot of comedy that's coming out of Hollywood seems to be like anymore. Like just kind of mean spirited takedowns rather than things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so before, like, a lot of people co-opted the term roasting, like, the people on the internet took the term roasting. Before that, roasting was actually a good thing. Like, when you were roasting somebody, like, you make like an insulting kind of like joke or whatever, but it was from a place of love.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
so there's that. But so basically what this is just taking, like, you know insulting somebody not from a place of love, but just to be insulting. And it's that sometimes that can work and sometimes it doesn't.
Right, like the classic comedy roast would be you had all these comedians who had known each other for decades and working in the same circles, and they all knew each other's foibles.
Hmm.
So they'd go up there and just lay into each other, but but they knew deep down that they had each other's backs.
Yeah.
Like you weren't going up there just to, you know, uh, oh, George Carlin, you kid diddler, I've always hated you and everything you stand for. You're like, boy, George Carlin, uh, 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 watch your wife around that guy. Or,
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about George Carlin besides his actual comedy routines.
Yeah. Well, and a classic example would be like Don Rickles. Like, he was the master of roast.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah, him getting up there and saying something insulting about Frank Sinatra, like, it wasn't like a total, like, death sentence, because, like, they were actually really good friends. So it wasn't, it's like, oh yeah, hey Frank, I saw you with uh, Dino's wife the other night. It's like, like, it's,
Fun Don Rickles story. I believe either they never got him on The Simpsons or it took a lot of effort to get him on The Simpsons.
they got him on The Simpsons, like, briefly. Um,
Yeah.
like,
Uh,
yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, like the problem was that I remember watching the commentary on some episode where it was like this was going to be the episode where Don Rickles showed up, and so we all sat around and we wrote a bunch of idea for the joke was that he picked on Homer in the audience and he just was roasting the heck out of him. And Homer thought it was so delightful and just kept giggling and not getting offended, which annoyed Don Rickles. And so they spent like an afternoon coming up with a bunch of Don Rickles roasts for Homer. And when they send the script to Don Rickles, he flips out because he thinks they've plagiarized his work because they did such a good job of doing what he would do. So that was like that was very much a oops.
Yes. Oh, we got a really good question here, from COVID Kev. Any good comedy movies or books to recommend?
Um,
Let's see. So we mentioned, it's a mad, 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 mad world.
Airplane is a classic, and I even like
Mhm.
Airplane too.
Yeah, Airplane 2 wasn't bad. Animal House.
It's your and basically anything with Leslie Nielsen is at least going to be worth a chuckle.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. So
Leslie
the yeah,
Nielsen, once he was in Airplane. Before
yeah.
that, he was actually a serious actor whose career had been on the downturn for a couple of decades. And
Hmm.
then suddenly he gets into Airplane, everyone goes, "Oh, this guy's completely deadpan delivery is hilarious.
Yeah.
Let's put him in everything."
Yeah. So yeah, then yeah, they ended up in, Naked Gun. Although, if you with Naked Gun, fair warning, a certain former NFL football player, who, may or who, well, did something very bad to two people in the mid '90s is in it.
I was trying to write a book about if he did it.
Yeah.
A, a
Yeah.
very juicy person, if you will.
Yes, yes. Orange juice. Um, let's see. Wayne's World, another
Mhm.
good one. Wayne's World, and I will say I liked Wayne's World too. I know a lot of people didn't like Wayne's World 2. I liked Wayne's World 2.
I haven't seen two. I've seen one.
Wayne's World 2 is funny.
I actually enjoyed Dumb and Dumber too, though I never, by some weird twist of fate, I never saw Dumb and Dumber 1. I just happened to go to the movies with my ex brother-in-law to see Dumb and Dumber 2. So maybe I was like, enjoyed it because I didn't have anything to compare it to.
Ah. uh, let's see. Well, speaking of Jim Carrey, Ace Ventura.
The Mask is pretty good, though. That's like half comedy, half action movie.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely need to watch Animal House. Definitely need to watch Animal House. Um,
As,
uh,
as far as comic books, Deadpool from so there's like a sweet spot of Deadpool. Was it Joe Simon writing it? 1 second.
mm. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the.
It's your Deadpool classic. Who wrote those?
I'm trying to think.
So that's the first volume. Okay, there's. Oh, come on. Stop listing Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly's Deadpool from the 90s is really good stuff, especially if you were reading superhero comics in the 90s.
Mhm.
Like, he was very good at drawing out the comedic potential of the character. I think he was kind of the one that made him the fourth wall breaker.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
I remember this because Rob Liefeld, the original creator of Deadpool, was not as fond of this particular portrayal, as he explained in his podcast. Though, I'm sorry, Rob, your kind of serious version of Deadpool didn't really catch on.
Yeah. Yes, people like the sarcastic, snarky Deadpool.
And as far as comedic comic books, hmm,
Yeah,
uh,
that's a
it,
tough one.
anything with the Great Lakes Avengers is usually if you want to send up of comic books is usually good. The Great Lakes Avengers was a concept that came out of wasn't it She-Hulk? Oh, how can I forget She-Hulk? The 80s runs of She-Hulk were great. They were like basically the adventures of She-Hulk breaking the fourth wall and having ridiculous take the piss out of things adventures. Um, for the DC equivalent, there's Ambush Bug, though truth be told, I haven't read that much. I was more of a Marvel kid.
Mm.
Ambush Bug is basically Deadpool before Deadpool. Similar sort of immortal, snarky character. Um, for TV shows, the animated cartoon I'm enjoying the most right now is Bob's Burgers. I would say American Dad seasons 3 through 7 or so, 3 through 8 had they went away from being just the Family Guy ripoff and became their own weird absurdist thing. And then that degraded over time, but still, they like they man they got some really like, weird ideas in there, like just really absurdist dialogue that I enjoyed.
Mm. Um, yeah, so comedy shows, I would say The Simpsons, seasons 1 through 12. I think season 12 is the season finale was Behind the Laughter.
Oh yeah, where it's like, yeah, we're this is our last season, and then it
Yeah,
wasn't.
it wasn't. Yeah,
Aggressively wasn't.
it should have been the last season,
Uh,
and I personally view that as the finale for The Simpsons.
What's really hilarious is the next season. So in that episode, they had a whole bit where they're recording like the last bit they're recording an episode. The Simpsons are going to Delaware. I can't wait to see a broomcorn factory. Homer,
Yeah,
this is going to
I
be
want
the
to see
last season.
this was the last season.
Okay, so then the next season finale, the Simpsons are going to Delaware. I can't wait to see a broomcorn factory.
Yeah,
They actually just used those clips and it's like, okay, I remember that.
yeah,
You guys are begging for death. That
yes,
death that
yes,
will not come.
yeah. um, let's see. I would say there are a lot of old school sitcoms that are pretty funny, like Cheers, Frasier, because you watch Cheers then Frasier. Um, what
Could
else?
you watch Frasier by itself? I'm not familiar with either show much.
You could watch Frasier by itself without watching Cheers. They would occasionally reference Cheers on Frasier, but not that much.
Okay.
They really tried. Um, yeah, they were really trying to make that show its own without having to rely on Cheers.
It's always a good idea.
Yeah. Um, What else? Well, if you have Hulu, um, I would recommend Murders in the Building. It's a good little murder mystery comedy. Steve Martin, Martin Short.
Now, see, that's actually one where I did not like it as much as you,
Mm,
and this is kind of like a one of those factors that I think makes comedy hard sell these days. Is that it can be hard to how to put it. Everybody brings something different to what they're reading or writing, reading
mhm.
or watching, I should say. And how to put it, I've gotten extremely tired of shows about characters who are bad at everything. If I say, but Ben, you like Bob's Burgers? Okay, fine. I'm a hypocrite. Whatever. They they
Yeah,
they,
yeah,
they managed to make it work. But
yeah,
actually, Bob is very good at making burgers, but everything gets in his way.
yeah. Oh, I still haven't watched this show
Yeah,
yet, but I've heard
man,
good things.
I gotta say, like I watched a few seasons of that, and it was funny. But man, I was starting to feel greasy in my soul after like 3 seasons worth. Yeah, watch that in small doses
Yeah,
because that one's intentionally about awful, awful people.
yeah, yeah. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Danny DeVito didn't join the show till the second season.
No, I think he was there from the start.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Could be mistaken.
But yeah, yeah, I heard from somebody that like once he got on the show, that's when it really started getting good.
Yeah. Now you know what we're not recommending, and this is something kind of related to that relatability and common frame of reference. We're both varying degrees of weeb. We have not recommended one Japanese comedy yet.
Mm.
Uh, Now there are a few I could do, like say Konosuba is funny. In fact, you can see that I have a print from that VTuber Teary Brush up there of the main cast of it.
Mm.
But there's something I've noticed. There isn't like a Japanese Simpsons that I like to watch. And I think the closest they would have is a show called Crayon Shin-chan, which is basically this long-running, crudely animated thing about a little boy going to kindergarten and being crass and awful all the time. And what I realized is that so we're talking about like the different ways to be funny. Well, Japan has a bunch of puns that just do not translate.
Hmm.
Like because this is just my non-Japanese speaking understanding. So you've got your kanji, right, which are just your characters that represent different things.
Hmm.
And because of historical reasons, every kanji has like two ways you can read it. Either the actual Japanese way or like a attempt to read it the Chinese way from several hundred years ago, which is just a different word. But but they're both represented by the same symbol. So this opens up a lot of room for just mass scale punnery because the same character, maybe it's like a lot of homonyms where things are pronounced the same but they mean different things. It's why if you're watching anime, they'll say, "Oh, your name is such and such. How do you spell it?" Which is like a weird question for the West, but for Japan, it's actually like a valid question.
Yeah.
So, like for example, in Bleach, the main character's name is Ichigo, which there's like the feminine version, which means strawberry. And then there's the other version that does not mean strawberry, but people were making fun of him for that. How the heck do you translate that?
Yeah. 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 And there's another one. And don't judge me for watching this.
Preparing
It's
to judge.
uh, uh, okay. Let's see if I can get the title of it out. Uh, Rascal does not dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. Think that's the whole title.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I just call it Bunny Girl Senpai. Um,
I haven't seen
and
much of that.
yeah, you talk about that's kind of a weird show too. But when the two main characters enter, when of course you're introduced to the lead female character when she's walking around the library in a bunny girl costume,
Right,
and yeah,
like I think I watched one episode that like she thinks she's turning invisible, so she's desperately trying to get attention, so she
yes,
doesn't turn invisible all the way.
right, and the main guy character is the only one who can see her.
Hmm.
And so when they introduce they introduce each other, and they say, "Oh, my name is such and such," and it's like da 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 da, and then she says, "My name is this," and it's like da 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 da, and I'm like, "What?" It's the same thing. Yeah, it's just like it doesn't really kind of translate very well over to English.
So let's see, and that's actually that kind of brings us to, okay, what would a Japanese Simpsons look like? Well, it would have a lot of references to classic Japanese literature, um, l- regional stereotypes, TV shows that probably never made it to the West.
Hmm.
So the Japanese comedies that tend to come over the best are the ones that do have that sort of reference. So, for example, Konosuba. You know, I keep forgetting that I'm mirrored over here. A lot of people play RPGs, so you know what an RPG video game is. Everybody can understand having useless coworkers or useless people in your life who drag you down. So you have these characters who are kind of like they would all be really, really good at what they did if they didn't have that one crippling character flaw. And they're all just like very broad character flaws, like, oh, Darkness is a sadomasochist, so she refuses to learn how to fight because she likes getting beat up.
Yeah.
Megumin could be the greatest wizard ever, but she refuses to learn anything but the one ridiculous spell she can only use once a day, which just makes a huge nuke explosion go off. Aqua is a overpowered goddess, but she has the brain of a meth riddled child. Kazuma is one who probably has the best together and the best grasp of tactics, but he kind of sucks except for his luck.
Yeah.
And also, Excel Saga is another one that translates pretty well, just because its comedy is built on hyperactivity. But there, I could tell you, like I've watched some of that. There are a lot of references that I'm like, yeah, you have your levels of weebdom. I'm probably like a level 2 or 3.
Hmm.
Like, man, I kind of grasp that I don't get these references. I know there's a reference there, but eh,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine like some of those jokes on The Simpsons. I've seen like the commentary tracks or like the special features was like, here's what Homer sounds like in Arabic. And it's like, oh my God, they must cut that down so much for the Arab world and just change all the references.
Yeah. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, all right, it's gone now. This is about the Simpsons, but yeah,
I asked a friend of mine who was from Peru and was a big fan of The Simpsons. So what did they do with the songs? Like they just played them. They didn't always translate them. So it's like, Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius,
Yes.
Dr. Zaius. Hey, do you think some kid from Peru is going to know about Planet of the Apes?
Probably not.
Probably not. He's probably just going to think, haha, it's funny because it's in a bad musical with monkeys. Uh, or I had to actually explain to him that the joke with Zoidberg from Futurama was that he's Jewish, but he's a shellfish, and Jews aren't allowed supposed to eat shellfish. And he's like, wait, what? Because he didn't know anything about that. Just because he didn't grow up with any Jewish people around, It's like just
Yeah.
uh, he just thought Zoidberg was funny because poor, starving, poor lobster man who speaks in a funny way.
Yes.
So it's like that's what I was talking about before. Like we could watch the same thing and both say, "Oh, that's a great comedy," but get entirely different things out of it.
Hmm.
Now to kind of tie it back to what we were talking about before. So to kind of go back to that Christmas Inc. show. So it's like you've lot great. You're not like making a lot of you're not making a lot of wordplay. You're not Your characters are unrelatable because who would unless it's like, oh, my job is awful and I hate it, but I'm going to get to the top anyway because I'm spite, I guess.
Yeah.
You're unrelatable because you hate Christmas. Like, okay, like congratulations, you've made something for like a very small group of people on Twitter. Which congratulations, you've made something for a very small group of people on Twitter is probably like is gonna be like on the gravestone of Hollywood.
Yeah. Famous last words.
Yeah, okay. And that's like kind of where I think that's the big. But also, I talked about the othering effect. So a lot of classic comedy is built on what would be today considered like really negative stereotypes.
Mhm.
Uh, so probably rightfully so. Like it's I'm not even going to say these stereotypes because that could get taken out of context. Just know that I'm saying that there are a lot of stereotypes out there that are not cool,
Yeah.
that but are also freaking hilarious when the right person delivers it the right way.
Yeah, yeah. One comes to mind from "It's a Mad, 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 Mad World," and you're right. I'm not gonna say it here because yeah, it'll get taken out of context, and then
Yeah.
I'll
Or-
just get
uh,
destroyed.
And if we feel like that when we typically have an audience of like probably 5 people watching the stream on an average
Mhm.
week, and by the way, thank you all for being here. Please smash
Yes,
that like button and consider subscribing to Daniel.
yes,
But
yes.
imagine the pressure if you're a stand-up comedian. Stand-up comedian is going to go in, do a show in front of several hundred people live, and then you do your show in front of several hundred people live, and they're going to record the best take of it to make a comedy special for Comedy Central or Netflix or whatever, and that could get viewed by millions of people. We are afraid of what might happen if we say the wrong thing in front of 5 people. Imagine, and this is like not our. We are not reliant on this for our income. Imagine if you're a stand-up comedian and you're reliant on being able to continue to do stand-up comedy to eat
Hmm.
and have a roof over your head. So that I think that's going to like have a chilling effect on a lot of up and coming comedians
Hmm.
because you still like who are your targets? I think we're finally getting to a point where people are starting to like even go things like Joe Dirt that make fun of Southern people like that. Maybe that isn't cool. I've heard some people like start speaking out against those stereotypes too, which really surprised me. That was like the one last acceptable target.
Yeah, 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 and I will say, like, yeah, like you said, that young up and coming comedians, that would be very difficult. The older comedians don't care.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, like Jerry Seinfeld doesn't care. You know,
Jerry
Dave
Seinfeld
Chappelle.
doesn't
Yeah,
need to go to your college campus. Jerry Seinfeld can sell at a show whenever he feels like it, or just or just get coffee and cars with comedians.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and Dave Chappelle doesn't care. He can say whatever he wants, and Netflix will still give him a special.
Netflix knows where their bread is buttered.
Hmm.
You've also got a wave of comedians who say, "Well, does comedy have to be funny? It's really more just me going up and talking about my experiences." And there are like now several like feminist comics who will go up there and talk about their awful experiences in a non-comedic manner, and they're seen
Yeah,
as like avant-garde comedians.
yeah, yeah. The Amy Schumers of the world, who just she just talks about how
Lady
much of a,
parts.
yes, her lady parts, and
Uh,
jumping
I'm
from
fat.
what, yeah, her, I'm fat and I like sleeping around. Okay.
Uh, I am fat and I am promiscuous. Also, farts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's also a level like we were talking about the Japanese problem. So imagine if you're Hollywood and you have $100 million that you can put into movies. Would you rather put that $100 million into an action movie where they fight aliens and nobody's going to be offended if you kill a bunch of aliens, right? Because there
Mhm.
aren't aliens out there. Well, I should say we haven't met them yet, so there's no stereotypes you can attach to aliens. And like, okay, well, if I put $100 million into this alien fighting movie, I can play it pretty much anywhere in the world, and people can understand an enemy force coming in, and maybe I just have some, Guardians of the Galaxy style quips,
Mhm.
and that's the comedy. Versus, hmm, well, if I give Will Ferrell $100 million, he hasn't paid back on any of the big comedies we've put him in lately. Is it just like he's not? Is he just out of ideas, or is it just that people don't like comedies? Now, to my mind, if I'm trying to like make money in a movie studio, I would be like, I'm going to put my $100 million into 10 different movies, and one of them at least will hit off big enough to pay for the others. But yeah, I'm not in financing, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean it's it's yeah, that's it's the economics of it all, like you said. I mean, I think most studio executives would say, well, I'll just make a $100 million alien invasion movie with Chris Pratt,
Hmm.
and then have him, maybe have him say a couple of quick one-liners here and there, and then he saves the day. Which, what movie am I describing? I just lost the
Um,
title.
every Chris Pratt movie ever made. That the general description would apply to Lego Movie, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, Jurassic World, whatever that last one he was just in on Netflix or Amazon or whatever.
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking of. The Tomorrow War. Yeah. But yeah, you either do that or and the other, of course, the other thing too is, like, if you're going to do like a comedy movie, you kind of have to have somebody in there that an audience is generally like. Um, so I'll be honest. Will Ferrell really isn't my cup of tea. Um,
Yeah, he comes to mind as like I think he was kind of the last major pure comic actor to get out of Hollywood.
mhm.
And
um,
even he kind of fell off. I think his last like really knock it out of the park movie was Talladega Nights.
yeah. And then, well, yeah, and then he did that figure skating movie with Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, that was boy, talk about stereotypes. It's like well, neither of us are gay. Boy, howdy, do we have gay panic?
Yeah,
That would not play well today.
no, yeah, it's the Tomorrow War, the movie that gets good when they stop doing the time travel plot. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Um, but yeah, like it because you look at, like, okay, so go back to It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
Hmm.
That movie had pretty much every big comedy name of that era in
And
that
the era
movie,
before it, even.
and the era before it. Yeah, I mean, you had like, and of course, I'm going to prattle off a bunch of names, and most of the people watching us are going to be like, "Who are these people?" But but at the time, like, everybody knew who they were, and everybody loved them, and that's why that movie did so well, and why people loved it. And and if you think about it, it's kind of hard to replicate that these days, because there aren't that many people with that sort of recognition.
Or that kind of likability.
Yeah,
Let's. I feel like Twitter has been the worst thing for pop culture just in general. It's like you should almost have like a, oh, did you hit 10,000 subscribers? Get off this platform. You're too big for it.
yeah,
Because we now basically know way too much about what every comedian thinks. So, it's like uh, if I see an actor on screen, quite often I'm not seeing their character or the premise of their movie. I'm thinking, oh hey, it's that guy who yelled at me for not getting the vaccine. I actually have gotten the vaccine, but he still yelled at me for not getting the vaccine.
someone yell at you for
No,
not for.
I'm like people
Oh,
have
you're.
done
Oh, oh,
that.
yeah, okay,
I've seen that happen to people. My stance on Twitter, and Dr. Rhino can basically, or Dr. Rhino can basically vouch for this, is I am very pleasant and I stay on business.
yeah. Yeah, I try to as well, although
I also post cute waifu art occasionally, but that's more of a side thing. I mostly
mhm,
talk about my writing.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, I will say the internet definitely hurt. I think it has hurt comedy in a lot of ways. It just,
Hmm.
like you said, because you get some comedian on there that you might really like, and then they say something on Twitter, and you're like, oh, come on, man.
Hmm.
You know, although I will say, like, the only comedian I follow on Twitter that like, he actually does post funny stuff is Larry the Cable Guy.
Really, at this point?
Yeah,
Hmm. Uh, uh,
get her done.
uh, that was also kind of like that last gasp of 2000s comedy. Uh, Also, there's a lot of YouTube channels that have kind of taken that place. It
Mhm.
almost feels like comedy. has become way more decentralized, which means it's easier to overlook. But I bet that if you look at your YouTube stuff, it's like, I follow them for comedy, I follow them for comedy, I follow them for comedy. You just don't think of them as being in the same category as Rat Race or
Mhm.
like a big movie, like a big Adam Sandler movie or something, because it's like you're not talking at the water cooler about the newest episode of RDC World.
Yeah, and the other thing too I would say is like a lot of art forms, comedy, after a while, if your shtick is comedy, you always have to stay fresh.
Hmm.
You always have to keep it, keep your comedy fresh. Otherwise, you're going to get, repetitive, and then you're not funny anymore. Kind of like with Mike Myers.
Oh
Um,
yeah, he just drove his career right into the ground.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He did what was that? The Guru
The
or
Love Guru,
the
and
Love
that was the
Guru.
end.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Although it started with Austin Powers 3, which was terrible. But yeah, it's I guess what we're trying to say is what's happened to comedy is that it's kind of gotten less about trying to invoke laughter and more about trying to like make people think, and it's kind of gotten not quite so funny, and then more mean spirited, and a lot of factors contributed to that. Twitter's being one of those places, and yeah.
And here's another one that occurred to me. This is actually speaking of Rob Liefeld from before. He was talking about how if you look at a lot of the action movies, most of the stars are in their 50s. Well, if I'm The Rock or Vin Diesel or whatever, and I want to keep making action movies, I just find a disreputable doctor who's willing to prescribe me whatever I ask for.
Hmm.
Uh, if Mike Myers wants to keep making comedy, there isn't exactly a love steroid, or excuse me, a love steroid. There isn't actually a funny steroid.
Yeah.
Uh, You got to, and the other thing, like especially if you're, if most of the actors are older, you get to a certain age, and you're probably going to surround yourself with yes men. And those yes men are going to tell you that anything you come up with is hilarious because they're used to saying yes to everything you do.
Hmm.
So you're in a bubble, and you can be in a bubble and be a dramatic actor or action actor, but you cut yourself off from like relatable incidents, and suddenly you're some stand-up comic who went from talking about growing up poor to complaining about your limo.
Yeah. Yeah, and then now all of a sudden you're no longer relatable. Now you're just a schmuck.
A rich entitled douche.
Yes. Exactly. Uh, so yeah.
And so this is something I failed to work into it, but I was talking about like the different ways you can be funny before, and I realized that there was a bit I had written last night
Oh yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
for my book that kind of like hit a couple of angles because it's about curling of all things. Which raise your hands if curling is your favorite sport. Yeah, I thought so. um, so like let me just mind if I take the screen for a moment? So, gotta- so okay, there we go. I said share, darn you. Oh, yep. Also, comedians have stopped doing blow all the time. That is true. So basic scene: main character of Magpie Wizard runs into this character, and he's trying to hit on her, which you can see why he would. Uh, and he's met her at a sports bar, and they're just getting to know each other. I do some work for the government, she said, glancing up at one of the screens. Oh, my game is back on. Which one? I took the chance to close the distance a bit, since I had the excuse that it would give me a better view of the television. American football? She shook her head, pointing to a few people on the ice, one holding a broom for reasons I couldn't fathom. No, curling. It's my favorite, and it's the world championship this week. I cocked my head at her. Curling? Can't say I've heard of it. She scooted closer to me. I'll tell you all about it. Please, enlighten me. I pasted a grin on my face, the things young men put up with for the chase. Well, you see that man with the large rock? That's called the curl ball. The objective is to knock the other team's curl ball off the ice. She tapped the edge of my stein with her wine glass to emphasize the point. The one who pushes it down the ice is the pushman. I see what's the broom for. He's the brusher, said Haida. His job is to clear the ice of debris so the curl ball can hit at the other as hard and fast as possible. I studied the players and I couldn't help but notice that most of the curl balls fell short of the mark. World champions, they don't seem to be very good at it. They keep missing. What a thing to say, she said. It's early in the curl battle. You see that man giving the orders? That's Bentley Ulfson, the greatest curl meister in the league. He's thinking 13 pushes ahead. I narrowed my eyes at her. You're taking the piss, aren't you? The blonde woman nearly bust a gut laughing. She kept going and she eventually leaned on me for support. Oh my God, I thought you'd never catch on. You're so trusting. Let's see here. And all right. Also, Daniel, I think you're muted.
There we go.
Yeah. So basically, that was me trying to hit a couple of levels at once. It's like if you know what curling is, you're going to immediately pick up that she's ridiculous and it is teasing Soren. If you don't know what curling is, you're going to probably think that words like curlmeister and pushman are funny, and then you'll eventually figure out the joke.
Yeah.
If you don't like either of those, well, if you're a young guy, you've probably been on a date where you had to decide to smile and nod. Yes, your cat muffin sounds amazing. Like, boy, you're such a good storyteller about your cat muffins. You talk about every story. Oh, another muffin sounds like a great kitty. Maybe I can come back to your place and meet him.
Yeah.
It's like that's an example of like some pretty clean comedy that isn't that just hits a couple of levels at once. Or maybe you're a young woman who goes on dates with men who smile and nod to lie to you, and you just like the fact that she got one over on him.
Mm-hmm.
So you can hit it from multiple directions at once. But anyway, that was just me. That was just what I wrote last night. So, and it's a rough draft. So if you read Magpie Wizard Book 5 eventually, it may have changed slightly.
All right. But yeah. I mean, that's a cool little interaction there, and I would say, like, like you said, it's relatable on from so many angles, and I think that's what's missing these days is it's just the most humor is only being directed at one type of person, and
Mm-hmm.
that type of person usually doesn't find things funny.
Right. Take everything a little bit too seriously. And Kev said something earlier. Recording stand-ups stops them from being honest on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's like the secret sauce that's at the core of everything is just that everybody's being watched more because they put themselves out there on social media because it's part of their promotion for their shows. So they have to be on tenterhooks more often.
Right. And a lot of times their shows are probably being recorded either by people in the audience
Mm-hmm.
or it's being recorded by somebody else, and they need the recording for audition reel, that kind of thing. And so
I've heard of a lot of stand-up comics who are kind of aware of the whole recording a joke out of context and trying to cancel them thing, who
mhm.
actually require you to turn in your smartphone at the start of the show.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we're almost at the hour mark. Does anyone have any questions for us?
Yes,
I know
COVID Kev asked a good question before about things we recommend.
hmm Yeah. So, anything else? Or see, I'm trying to think of maybe there's another. Oh, so there are a lot of great comedies in the '80s.
Hmm.
s- you had like Three Amigos.
Oh, how can I forget that?
Yeah, Three Amigos. That was one of my favorite movies as a kid. Um,
So like the wind.
so like, it's the infamous El Guapo. That means he's more than famous. And other jokes on that I can't say on YouTube. Let's see. Well, COVID Kev mentioned Blow, Blues Brothers,
Yeah.
because Belushi was on that for most of that movie.
Oh, but that apparently that car crash scene at the end was at one point the most expensive scene ever filmed in Hollywood, just because of all the cars they actually destroyed for it.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, a lot of comedies in the '80s directed by John Landis. Yeah, like Coming to America.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's another Landis one I just had and I forgot it. Oh, Trading Places.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Eddie Murphy back when he was funny.
Yes. Before he had an encounter with a some a certain
So somebody with large hands, yes.
somebody with large hands, yeah. And then he had to become a family guy, and then it didn't work out too well for him.
It almost feels like there was like a wave of really great comedians in the 80s, and then they all had to like grow up and make family movies in the 90s and 2000s, and nobody really took their place as like the base level comedians.
Yeah. I mean, that may be another thing that happened to comedy. Just didn't have those young up and coming guys to fill that void.
Or at least none of them caught on. Like Nick Swardson did like a decent stand-up special that I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the bits that sticks with you was, which is true to friends of mine who have gotten off of marijuana, was when I stopped smoking pot, I suddenly felt like I had superpowers because I remembered where I put things. Like, where are my keys? You left them on the table. How did I know? I have psychic powers. But like he made movies and they were awful. So
yeah,
apparently being a stand-up comedian in the 2000s wasn't the same pipeline to movies and TV that was in the 80s.
yeah. Same with Larry the Cable Guy. He was good stand-up, but then all of his movies were just awful.
Yeah, though he was good at voicing a tow truck, so I mean that he's got that going for him.
Yeah.
He was born to play a tow truck.
Yes.
If Larry the Cable Guy is half as funny as you make him sound, that should be on his tombstone. Born to play a tow truck.
Born to play a tow truck. Yeah. He has there's a bit he has where he's talking to he's asking for advice from a family member, like his grandmother or his aunt or something, and she's on the toilet. She's giving him advice. All right. All right. So I guess that's all the show we have for tonight. Bobcat, any parting words?
Make jokes like nobody's watching, but stay within the terms of service for YouTube, which is another problem. But
yes.
Unless you get like Steve Crowder and just get big enough that you can thumb your nose at it and sell mugs for a living.
Yeah.
Which
right.
Would you buy a Tuesday with Story mug? Say,
yeah.
If yes, say in the comments below.
Yes. All right. Couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you everybody for watching. We really appreciate it. And as Bobcat said earlier, smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you next week. Good night, everybody.
Later.